Welcome to What's Your Sign? I'm Julia Loken.
I'm Stevie Goldstein.
And I'm the 2023 of this podcast.
Whoop,
Happy New
whoop.
Year!
We're back, baby, in a whole new year. Very,
It's
very
new,
new.
brand new.
Doesn't
How
feel
to
that new
admit,
yet, but it
I know.
will. It will soon.
It's like so the calendar says she takes a drag on her cigarettes.
Gregorian strikes again.
are you guys
The return.
excited? Do you have resolutions?
No.
Not yet. Um I mean kind of the same. I feel like the same ones but more it's more of like a not existential, but there's inklings, callings, longings, but not necessarily a plan. And it feels like I know I've been saying this, but I am also like, I think that I specifically am going to try to like use this beginning retrograde time and uh to like receive a little bit more. It feels like I've
Mm.
been doing a lot of like pushing and I'm like, all right, I'm ready. And then I'm like, oh, I gotta do less.
Yeah, I think, and looking ahead at this year too, I think seeing where the energy flows is going to be a big piece of
Mm-hmm.
info for the most part. I feel like, and I've had this convo with a few friends lately. I feel like everyone's grips are starting to loosen a bit. I think that we've had, in terms of like Saturn stuff, right? Like Saturn and Capricorn and Aquarius, and it's been like 6 years of like Saturny Saturn stuff. And the grip's feeling a little bit slippier. And maybe it's because there's so much uncertainty. And yeah, I think even getting ready for this was like, dude, I don't fucking know because there's just so much newness coming that I feel like I'm feeling similar. Just what you said, Julia. It's like I think I'm waiting for more information, and
Mm-hmm.
then I feel like I can have more resolution there. But I want to get my house clean and in order and hang stuff
Yeah,
up. So that feels
that's a
very.
good one.
Yeah.
That's like that's a decent. Well, now like with time, I didn't just move in. I've been here 5 months, like, and then I can see the lease renewing and coming back up. So yeah, and I'm gonna do a workshop in the new year. I like to do one class at least every year of life, and I don't think I did a class last year, so I skipped a year. So I think I like doing workshops and classes. So maybe trying to do more of that, more witch stuff actually in 2023. I just came up with a new resolution right now.
There it is.
There you go.
I want
What
to go to
about
more
you?
witchy stuff.
I have a few. The ones that I think I can say publicly would be that I'm not scared to say out loud are one of them is about how I talk to myself when I make especially when I make a mistake. I tend to be like
Mm.
moron, and that's not nice. I you could do that. I don't do it to other people, and I could, but I do it to myself. Um and then so just working on that inner voice a little bit and softening that. My outer, I'm able to fake it a little bit more. But the inside voice can be mean sometimes. And then the other one is from a yoga class that I do, and it's just something my teacher says that is um she talks about, like there are days when you're just really trying to grab your toe or whatever the thing is. You really want to like hit that pose, but you got to leave some for tomorrow. You can't just like hit all of the poses today because that's how you get hurt and stuff. So I think that is going to be a kind of like back and forth figuring out which things are to leave some more for tomorrow and which things are to like consume all today or burn through all today, where I
Mm.
think, there are certain types of love we can give that we can burn through it all today. Like for my pet, I feel like that one where it's like I can give 100 for that, but sometimes when it's, letting somebody walk all over you because you're giving 100% of your love, that's like, so let's save some for tomorrow.
Ooh.
I've been saying the phrase "that's for another day" is like my mantra to bring with me into this new year, because it's like
Mm.
not a not a like I'll get to that whatever, because something that I want to do is be more like, I don't remember when you brought this up, Stevie, but the like, if it takes 5 minutes, just do it now,
Hmm.
kind of thing. But also doing that with,
Still learning that for myself, by the way.
We're all
But
working
of
on
course,
that
we
one.
all are,
2023, what's your sign resolution?
as we all are. But I think not. There's something to me about like for another day feels not like I'll do that. I'll get to that when I get to it. It does have some kind of timeliness to it, but also the recognition that you can't do it all today and you don't have to finish everything. It can go on like the next day's to-do list, but also trying to do that with being more the same thing with the 5 minutes is like also feeling what I'm feeling right away too, and trying not to put so much of that off, which is a very hard Capricorn moon endeavor, but also one that I am trying to go like, okay, maybe that can be for another day, but it can't be for like 2 months from now. It has to be like while it's still happening and you can do something about it. So at the very least, you can feel like you are, I don't know, in charge of your life or whatever.
Mhm. For another day this week,
Yes. Yes.
presumably. It's in this still in
Yes.
this time bubble. I love all of this. It's getting my gears turning. And I think I love what you're saying about speaking nicely to yourself, Lisa. I feel like there's a lot astrologically this coming year that hopefully will aid that for you too. Even this Mercury retrograde in Taurus, I feel like might be a good practicing time for those things, because I started doing more positive self-affirming mantra shit in the end of last year. And it's been wild. Like I read one day where I was like just saying that I was the best. Like I'm the best. Like I'm the shit. Like hype man kind of stuff. And then like later out of nowhere, Pablo was like, "You're the best." He's never like he compliments me, but like he's never said that phrase, or like it was just too kismet. I was like, I've been calling myself the best all fucking day. And not to like, it's like, wow, okay, I really just slipped into woo territory and like affirmations. But, it's the world is cruel. I feel like I end up saying this to a lot of people when talking about astrology. It's like everything is saying no and everything is challenging and adulting. Am I right? So we need ourselves on our sides. And there's some days we know we are the best. And there's a lot of days we don't feel that way, but there were days we felt like we were the best. So we just not hopefully can remind ourselves we'll get back to those days. Hopefully. I saw this fucking TikTok that was like, why do
I'm
people hang out
doing
with
that.
people?
Oh,
What?
never mind. Different one. Affirmation. You go.
Well, what's your affirmation? Or do you know?
It's one from TikTok. But you
Oh,
go ahead with yours. Yeah.
this is a different TikTokery that I saw that was like, why do people hang out with people that don't like them? And maybe it's this fucking Uranus Taurus that's been gallivanting through my 11th house since 2018, and it's going to be there till 2025. And I've had a lot of shakeups in a lot of old friendships, new friendships, but it was very interesting to see people's stitches and duets with it, because a lot of people have experienced that where there's like time or loyalty, or like you look like someone I should hang out with, or you fit, I like your aesthetic, and they're actually not rooting for you. So I think I'm also just gonna only go towards things that feel very cup filling. And I think of Dr. Jennifer Freed's episode a lot of The Fountain and Sacred Crew and Filling Cup. I took a lot of notes from that episode of getting ready for this really new era we're about to usher in. So I've just learned a lot from the both of you just now in
The
this intro.
reason we hang out with people we don't like is because the generation before us is Gen Xers.
Oh God,
They don't
you're
like
so right.
anyone or anything, most specifically us.
Well, and I think there's a feeling of, I think it goes
Wow.
both ways. I think that there is also a like I want to turn this person, or I can, if I can get this person, if I can figure out why, if they, it's better if I get someone who doesn't like me to like me, or something that I think is also built into a bunch of different aspects, both generationally and societally. And I
Mm-hmm.
also think though that like, I don't know. Yeah, that feeling that everyone should like us, or so you like focus on.
That
I think of
too.
it like when you're on stage too. And so how many people focus on the one audience member that's not laughing versus the whole room that is. But also I think that like, I don't know, there's something about I it made me think of the opposite too, of like, what about people that you don't like that you also tolerate and don't kind
Mm-hmm.
of I don't know, be honest about that or going like that. And that's something that like, yeah, I don't know. Both, I think when you are doing that, it is also easier to go like, well, I hang out with people that I don't like. It's fine
Yeah.
if they don't like me. Like, but we're
Mm-hmm.
we're both getting something out of it. And so figuring out how do we like, is there, because I also think that there's a normal kind of, oh, this person annoys me because everyone's human and of course everyone's gonna annoy us at some point. But is this
Totally.
someone that you actually
Don't
like?
like,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. Everyone
I
gets some grace period of like being annoying. We're
Mhm. Or a
all
hard time,
annoying.
a season when they are someone that you don't
Mm-hmm.
like versus other time, like, whatever.
We're not performing. We don't have to always be 100% at our core. I'm gonna find this link because I'll put it in because they said something interesting about where no, any advice they give you, you roll your eyes because you don't respect their opinion and I mean some people keep around people they don't like so they feel better
Mhm.
about themselves. So that's my dumb friend that's always late or they don't know about cool shit or on the opposite of like they get me to go to cool shit or like using things. So yeah, I guess things being less, and maybe that's the Aquarian shift. I keep saying like ending, but it's really not because we're about to usher in a different era of Aquarius energy with Pluto, but it not being so transactional and more feeling centered, which we'll
I
experience maybe more with Pisces.
I think it's definitely Saturn and Pisces. I think that it's that like duality between the boundary and the boundaryless and what like which rules do we follow? What advice do we take? Because that like it's rules being in the most unruly place. So
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things where it's like that means there's some kind of contention between the two things, and that can be really difficult, especially if you work in, I'm sure, a legal field or something where you have to like enforce rules all day, or highlight errors made or something like that. But if not, it kind of frees us up in a way to decide which boundaries we have, which things we listen to, which people we want to take advice from, and all of those things. I think it's very Saturn Pisces.
Hmm. Which
Mm-hmm.
is our first, so we're here at our first big transit, I think, of the year, which is Saturn moving into Pisces, which happens on the 7th of March.
I'm
We
gonna back you up to Mars direct on the 12th. I think is
That's
gonna
true,
be a
is a
little bit.
big
It's
is
a
a big day.
shift that we haven't felt
That we
yet,
need.
Yes.
and
Yes.
right when that Saturn goes, it's gonna change sign too. So I feel like the
Yes.
middle of January is we're gonna start running again when we've been jogging for a bit or
I
whatever.
I think
Mm-hmm.
that January Mars direct, I absolutely agree. I think to me it feels like that's going to be more of the like, oh, that's like lifted. And then that Pisces Saturn is like, okay, and now here's something truly new. Not that
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
relief of now our wheels are out of the mud. We've been turning in this thing for a long time. Now we're like finally making forward motion, but we haven't quite arrived yet at the vacation house that we're getting to. And now we're at the thing and this next thing starts. Not to say that Saturn and Pisces is a vacation house. That's just what I was imagining because I'm imagining us going up like a hill to
Mm-hmm.
this place. So Saturn moves into Pisces on the 7th of March, the same day that we get a full moon in Virgo, which I like. And
Mm-hmm.
Mars, I do feel like, is part of this story because it will still be in its shadow. It's direct at this point. But or is it? Am I wrong? No, it is. Um, we yeah, I think that Saturn in Pisces is definitely also thinking about that, like you said it, Stevie, and then also Chris Brennan brought it up on the astrology podcast of having it at the only time that we have like Saturn in a Saturn ruled sign back to back is when it goes from Capricorn to Aquarius. So we've had like Saturn, 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 Saturn. And so now we're finally getting a different Saturn energy. And I do think that that Pisces Saturn is like, okay, there's like your literal time. And then there's also like emotional time and infinite time and these things that kind of aren't quantifiable that you are also wasting, and also the kind of like shared etheric resources that we are also polluting when we perpetuate relationships and structures and things like that that don't actually move us forward towards things that we want. What the fuck are we trying to uphold? If nobody likes this, what who has all of this time that we're wasting? Why are we acting like this? This is that time is both infinite and more spacious than we could ever imagine in Pisces, and also is like, yeah, but also you still have a finite amount of it. Let's be respectful of it, because this is going to only keep growing and like calcifying. Even again, Pisces is that more permeable structures than say a Saturn in Capricorn, a Saturn in Aquarius, but it is still about like, I think, things that we do over time.
Can I just call out something that I did not expect for this Saturn and Aquarius time? And I hope this means that it's ushering out with Saturn and Pisces. And I didn't think that these would be the correlation, but I'm shocked how trend focused we were as a society with Saturn and Aquarius, because you think Aquarius, like this rebellious thing. And then I forget about Saturn being really like structured and by the rules. Like I'm thinking of like Portia in White Lotus clothing, like Instagram clothing. Like we are just so trendy right now as a society, like where everyone has access to the trends. And I hope Saturn and Pisces is a little more hand me down or weird, and not like, oh, I get my vintage clothes through Depop. It's like, no, actually now I go just thrift them or trade them with friends or something. I'm just really surprised how trendy this Aquarius Saturn time was.
I agree with you. I think Aquarius is an in the know sign, so that like tracks in a lot of ways, and also they know how to kind of do things the quick and fast way, where Pisces might value a little bit more of the journey that you're talking about, of like going to the thrift store rather than having the thing, which is also like a fixed sign thing. And we've been having a lot of I don't want to move too fast because I have a ton of notes on Saturn and Pisces, but we've been having the nodes in fixed signs too. So I think that also influences kind of how we get things done. You know, sometimes fixed sign people are willing to like pay for something instead of take time doing that. That's something I definitely do. So I definitely think those are signatures of Aquarius. And also like, I do think Aquarius, I know that like you're all going to turn this off or whatever when I said they want to be cool. I know that they want to like, they don't want to say that they want to be cool, but they want to be cool. So yeah, of course, like online searching vintage clothes, like that's like, of course.
I think it also has been a bit of a rat race in piggybacking off of this, because I agree that it is wanting to be cool. And I think that the internet has made being actually cool pretty fucking hard, because everyone can know about what you're doing. You post it and anyone can find it, which is fantastic and very Aquarian and community focused. But it also means that you are constantly trying to outdo yourself and everyone you've ever met and everyone they've ever met and everyone that like, it's too many people to appease and appeal to and to appear cool to. And it's like, you're just you found that next thing, but someone else found the next thing. So now you're like, okay, well, I'm going to get on this one right on top of it. And so did 50 other people. You know what I mean? Like
the community element of Aquarian can then be like, dang, I didn't realize I invited all these people.
Yes. And being like, oh, I didn't realize how many cool people were out there, which again, is like, great. I know I can be a hater with these kinds of things sometimes, but I do think that it is cool and expansive and opening. My thought about Saturn and Pisces, and this is something that has been stated on several other astrology year ahead looks, but thinking of like, one of the things that was brought up is that Saturn and Pisces is Saturn return for Amazon and other internet companies, and how this might signal a time where we are seeing some restructuring of internet things. We're already seeing it with Twitter, which is one we've already obviously talked about a bunch. But I do think that this could mean some not necessarily internet literal outages, but limitations on how much you're able to use devices, whether that be because we are not financially able to afford all of the services that we once had, because there are going to be new caps on things, because it also just is like, we've been there, done that. It's not giving us the dopamine hit anymore. I wrote down like imagination is back in this Saturn in Pisces. I do think that there might be some retreating and some like maybe sharing a little bit less of what we're actually wearing, liking these sorts of things, to go like, I want to
more sacred.
I want a little space. I want this. I think the in-person thrifting example is one where it would be like, oh yeah, I want to find a local spot that someone isn't going to know about, that I actually can't. Maybe it will still be under the auspice of wanting to perform on the internet, but it might come more from like, oh yeah, I'm doing that thing that we forgot about. I've seen a tweet thread of a bunch of people saying, someone posted like, poetry NFTs. It's a document that you could put on. And someone was like, it's a PDF. What you're describing is a PDF. And then someone else did like a response to it. And the thing they described, someone was like, that's a website. And I think that there has been a lot of reinventing, thinking we've reinvented the wheel, and Saturn and Pisces going like, hey guys, did you forget that's like a restaurant or a store? Remember before that? Like, you can go to it.
Yeah.
I'll link this on the notes too, but jessicadavidson.co.uk has a good like Saturn throughout history sort of thing. And we did have the first Snow White first feature length animated film, Dr. Seuss's first children's book. So that whimsy stuff that you mentioned,
it's way more than that. I think
there's like
Game of Thrones, the first Game of Thrones like was written during this. It's like world building.
Yeah, PlayStation came out. Prince started going by the symbol. It's a really cool. It's a very like I'll put the link to it, but it's very, and there's also a lot of build up to war kind of stuff too, and the social rights movements. But
holes. I mean, still thinking of Saturn, thinking of Neptune in Saturn, it is a thing that you want to be stable in structure, having holes in it essentially.
Yeah.
And that's not something that hasn't been happening, but yeah.
That's another thing too, is that Neptune and Saturn both being in the same sign hasn't happened for a very long time, and they won't conjunct until they get to Aries, but I think it might be like at 0 degrees or like one of those very early degrees.
Well, interesting.
It'll be like not this year, but it Saturn and Neptune, it's like even more dissolving, disillusion, like even more, I think. And I think a lot of the things I wrote down are not like positive. So I'm sorry if you're, having a tough year getting
Look,
started,
you're saving them for yourself, Lisa. We already declared that the positive affirmations
I get all the positive things, but like I think the pharmaceutical industry and like kind of we're talking a lot more about like MDMA and psychedelics and how those things like can be used in our like Western medicine, not just like as a free-for-all. I also think that there are some of the things like with social media, it's like it's endless, like there's no getting to the end of it. And a lot of these like new video games too are just like you're just in the world and you just play. And so I think there's going to be either innovation in those areas where we're, building those worlds up even more and creating bigger and bigger structures surrounding them. I'm thinking of like theme park ride from movie, or putting restrictions on how far we can go in those things and what things need to be cut off. I also think that it's like this thing I always say with Pisces, but I really do feel like when we're learning lessons, just because like you already know doesn't mean you don't have to like learn it again. Like every time I get sick, I'm like, I knew I shouldn't have blah, blah, blah. We do that to ourselves all the time. I knew I shouldn't have taken a drink from the server who was sniffling or whatever the like thing you tell yourself you did wrong to get sick. And it's like, just because it doesn't mean you're never going to get sick again. To wash your hands for 30 seconds every time. Do you do it every time? I know I don't. If you do, congratulations for you. I'm sure you have some other nasty habit. You know what I mean?
Or cool, you're the one that's going to have to give all of us soup because you're never sick. What a monkey's paw.
And then I also think like with Pisces, they get a lot of this martyrdom thing. And something that kind of actually came up during our Patreon episode, and Stevie was talking about Cancer being the first water sign. And you can check out our Patreon at patreon.com/what's your sign podcast if you want to check out that full moon in Cancer episode. But I do think that with regards to, the innovation that's happened in Aquarius or Saturn Aquarius time, AI stuff, there is this kind of Piscean, to me, thing where they will like try it first. I'm not talking about like early adopter. I'm talking about like when we're doing the MDMA therapy or whatever. I feel like it's a very Pisces thing to be like, well, if this is as far as the research goes, fine, I'll be the one to try it. And we'll see if it actually cures my depression or PTSD or whatever, where that is not really an instinct for a lot of types of people. So I do think while there is this kind of martyr energy or like, poor me, I'm the one or whatever, the very like, I don't know, sacrificial lamb type thing. At the same time, I think that it's really that kind of clinical study and those things. It can also really get like innovated when people start saying like, all right, well, I'll give it a shot. And we already see, this is one I personally wouldn't be a person to try, but we could already see it. Chips that Elon Musk is making, and like people are trying, like they're talking about people trying
your hand to pay,
you know what I mean?
Whatever.
Yeah, like people try those things. So I think this is a time of like when we're seeing all of that innovation that may have happened during Aquarius, and these are like people are actually putting them to use or trying them.
I do think that is an interesting one because right after this, Saturn into Pisces, and we won't leave it if there's more to talk about it. And I think that we're going to keep talking about it no matter what, because it's constantly going to be in the background of this. But I think
I wish we had the 4 hours of Chris Bredden's podcast.
And
we'll go over everything as it comes.
Yeah, I was like, we're going to do a Saturn in Pisces episode for sure, because there is more about this year and we could talk about it for an entire episode all on its own, which we will. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe, follow us. Pluto moves into Aquarius for a brief spell. We get a little preview of that. And I do think that there is some of this like, okay, ask yourself this. Are you excited? Are you looking forward to getting chipped? Because this is the world that we are building right now. And if you wouldn't be willing to do it, maybe consider what it is that we are doing to like prop this up, to continue this. If this is the world that you like, then.
And we're not talking about the vaccine for those of you who are new to our podcast.
No, we mean this.
Talk about scanning to pay through Apple Pay on your finger or whatever.
Yes. No, we get Pluto moving into Aquarius on the 23rd of March, and it will remain at that 0 degree of Aquarius until June 11th. So we're just getting a quick little preview of it. We'll move fully into Aquarius next year, where it will remain until I believe 2044, something bananas like that. So this is also truly like a
a new era,
a huge shift. We are in a new era, and it does feel like having this mutable Pisces Saturn is part of what is helping us transition into that. We are also seeing a transition from the eclipses that we've had from fixed Taurus North Node, Scorpio South Node into Aries North Node, Libra South Node, and they are not going to be. We're going to have the mixed pairs for all of these eclipses, but thinking of this as like a kind of preview and transitional time where we're not fully in one quality quite yet. We still do have a fair amount of fixed things happening, but we are leaving that Saturn Uranus square that's been so present for us. So we are starting a new Saturn story. We're starting a new Pluto story. And these new kind of like change points. So I think that it is all of our kind of trepidation about saying what it is too that we are even seeing for this year comes from this being a like, I don't know, there's a lot changing.
Just starting.
We could have, and that's exciting. It's also kind of unknown and wild.
So a phrase that I saw, just because I do think Saturn and Pisces, Pluto's taste of Aquarius before it's stays in Aquarius. What's the dates on that? So it's going to go till June 11th, like you said, and then it won't re-enter Aquarius till January 21st, 2024. So we really do get like a spring early, mainly the spring with Pluto and Aquarius, then backtracking to Capricorn. Then she's fully there in Aquarius. A phrase I saw from like an economist that I thought was interesting was slow session, which just feels very Pisces as well. Where the economy doesn't seem like it's going to do quite well this year. No one is predicting a huge fucking recovery. Will it be a total downturn, or will it just feel really slow and slumpy and people cutting their costs where they want to? I think Julia mentioned with like, we've now seen streaming turn back into cable. And it's like, okay, well, we did that because we didn't want cable. And this was supposed to be the easy place where I could get, there's something about Mary to watch a movie on Netflix, but now it's only Netflix originals. And I didn't come here for Netflix originals. I came here to watch There's Something About Mary in one easy place. I had that when we were out in the desert renting DVDs, because I was like, well, now you pay $3.99 each time on YouTube or Google. This is the same. This is renting movies again. It's just, but you don't get the fun of the renting of the movie.
Now it doesn't give anybody a job. It gives it gives a thing. Now you're just
it's just like
a job
annoying.
in your house.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
it gives you a job.
Task. Yeah.
And then two, just on a notice of astrological patterns, because that's sometimes what we can do to see what happened, is the last time we had Pluto move into a sign, then retrograde back before it re-entered its new Pluto phase was the 2008 crash. So it was in that retrograde period after it went into Capricorn, and then it retrograded back, and then it started to move forward again in Sagittarius. It was those final degrees. So we are in the final degrees of Cap Pluto.
Well, we also
I don't mean to be doomy, but that doesn't feel like small potatoes, We
also have Jupiter moving into Taurus in May, which I also think, while it sounds like, like awesome finance stuff, it really sometimes Jupiter can just be a real magnifying glass on those problems. It's not necessary. That might, cause us to see problems and be able to fix them and like fix our economy and stuff, maybe, and hopefully that's the best that Jupiter can offer us. But it also might be something where it's like, well, the more we look at it, the more the stock market crashes, because people understand that this thing is like kind of made up, or you know what I mean? Like things like that, where like sometimes and it's going to, I think it's going to be in sign conjunction at the very least with Aquarius. I don't know if he'll ever actually touch
with Uranus.
That's sorry.
Yeah. Not yet. It's not this year, but it
next
will.
Year.
Yeah.
So like April 4/20, 2024. Because I checked that because I was like, wait, when does Jupiter and Uranus like come together? That feels big.
Hell no, I'm not having a birthday on that year. Ugh, no way.
That sounds
fun.
Fun part. That's like,
well, you guys let me know how it is.
And I'm like, this is Babylon party.
Me and Julia will be in line getting our chips.
But yeah, I do think like finance is going to be in the air, whether it's like, and that 100%. Does mean possibly that Jupiter and Taurus thing can be the like big parabola, like big wins, big losses, like that totally tracks.
Quality, quantity, what's worth, Taurus, also, I think, gets the meme rap of like shopping. It's like, it's
they
a little more particular than that. Yeah, exactly.
Well, also the idea of resources, of things like that, of like finance. I mean, not only just, we've talked a lot about that with the Saturn in Aquarius, thinking about it as an Aquarian thing where we're talking about like Bitcoin or whatever, about all of these things. I think with Saturn and Pisces, we are seeing how much stuff is just made up, and highlighting that, where it goes like, hey, really made up things control our very real physical resources, and we should be aware of that. Like that kind of thing of like, well, how can you access, if we don't have the internet, or if you didn't have whatever, if everything's automated, I feel this all the time when I'm trying to do customer service stuff, where I'm like, hey, what happens when when I can't type in the problem that I need solved, and I need to access like my money, my whatever, like food, any of those things, if we don't have if people aren't aware of those, whatever, like even thinking of how much business is online, where it's like when we talked about Instagram going down for a day, where it's like, what if that happens in any like
every day.
whether
At the
whether or
bank,
not
yeah.
whether or not it will, but that is something that we should all be at the very least concerned of. Speaking about like security measures or whatever, where it's like, yeah, what if
cybersecurity?
yeah,
I'm
all of
freaked on cybersecurity.
Huge
all of that
issue,
kind
yeah.
of stuff. And
I
that to
also
me is a
think
Jupiter Taurus. Yeah.
Well, we
Mhm.
also have a Venus retrograde this year in another fixed
Yeah.
sign too. And so I think that is just another taste of how if you are not saving money right now, if you don't have anything saved, you should start today. I know that it's hard, but pennies, start saving something that you can actually turn into something. Even if it's dollars off of your paycheck or dollars off of your however your income comes to you, your Venmo account, start squirreling little things away. I'm not saying we're all going to die or anything like that, but it's just this time you might want to have some savings.
That
This
to me
year
sounds
doesn't feel
like that
risky. You know,
No.
like this year doesn't seem risky. It feels very maintainy. Some good keywords I even wrote were slippery, off grid, which is something Julia said as well. AI, because the AI might want to make us go off grid. I did write down universal basic income. I don't think that's coming in 2023, but I think it's going to prove more of our need for those things as more things get automated.
I think it's going to be
and maintaining your peace.
That's good. I think it's going to be a contender though in the election. I think it'll get brought up plenty for when they start what's it called? Not advertising, campaigning.
Oh God, and that's
it'll be
a
part. Yeah, it'll be a part of. I think UBI will.
Well, I think this is also one of the things that's been discussed about all of these things is like rise of cults and religious extremism continued. Obviously, we all know that that's already existing a thing, but I think it is someone who is able to, if we're talking about the world building and the transformation and these things, that if there is some sort of crisis, that someone who would be able to paint a very vivid picture of a future where something like a universal basic income would have prevented this thing or whatever, like, or imagine someone was talking about this, I think on the Astrology podcast, where it was like environmental issues that they were doing, and it was like, imagine a world where it is this kind of thing, where it's almost like those like dystopian future stories that are told that kind of scare people into going like, oh my God, I could see us having a great series where robots have replaced us and show us the need for a universal basic income being even more persuasive than say a campaign, and then someone being able to campaign on the emotional reaction that people have had to something like that.
Whoa.
But
Damn.
agreed. I think one of the things that I wrote down as of this idea of this year being agreed about it not being particularly risky. It does feel like the cardinal and the mutable are coming in to kind of help. Fixed signs have been holding it down and maintaining for us and been doing all of the work. And then these signs are coming in.
Okay. I can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
Can we have a year off? Just one.
We need
Not
you
this year.
We need the fixed signs. Nothing gets done without them.
We don't need me. We don't need me this year. No, it is. But it has. We're still in the line of fire a little bit here.
Yes,
we will wrap up the Eclipse series. Yeah, which is great.
It's a wrap up for fixed. You're not off the hook yet because it does feel like a new team is kind of coming in. You know, you've been the workers at the place that have been just making sure that the factory keeps churning. Now we're getting some new management. We're getting some new HR person that's going to come in and kind of negotiate and do that. And, using that as the mutable kind of archetype. And then these cardinal eclipses kind of coming in and being like, nope, this ends here. I'm CEO now. We're not doing this. Everything's canceled from that. You still have to like work here, essentially fixed signs. But I do feel like it is going to be at least a new place to kind of direct some of that frustration, and it will not be all on your shoulders. You don't have to be fully responsible for all of it at the same time. It feels like those eclipses.
I mean, we do have like some long-term Jupiter and Venus transits happening in fixed signs this year. So hopefully it does feel like a little bit of a graduation, or at least like we're getting some highs or, crests of waves.
It does feel like there is some powerful, again, like those square, thinking of these as square actions where it is like stuff feels like it's going to get done, not necessarily finished forever or whatever, but does feel like there is forward motion despite there being the Venus retrograde, the other, I feel like, big signature of this year, which that happens in July, on the 22nd of July, Venus stations retrograde at 28 degrees of Leo, the same day that the sun ingresses into Leo. We will have Venus moves into Leo on the 5th of June. And if you are subscribed to our calendar app, you can see the shadow phases on all of these too. Subscribe to our
damn, we
Gcal.
should have. Yeah, I'm like, we should have set this up top.
Hey, yeah, I don't know. I'm like,
Google Calendar.
I know you're
still
listening
can.
to this. Yeah,
I'll add an intro.
Yeah,
we can also, I think also one of the best things that we haven't told you guys about the calendar is that if you don't want a calendar, you could still just give us the dollars.
Oh yeah,
it's a great way to support, even if you're not like, maybe you're here for us and not so much the dates and times, you know. Maybe then you just send the money on over. You have the calendar, but you don't like have to use it.
And if you didn't know, we made a Google Calendar subscription. You click it, it syncs to your calendar. Honestly, there's too many apps. And if we make an app one day, you never heard me say that, but we have a Google Calendar subscription and it's so easy and I love it. And we've been getting great response, I will say.
It follows planetary ingresses, retrograde periods, full moons, new moons, and the retrogrades do include the shadow periods too, so you can know what's happening. So subscribe
for the
to
personal planets. The outer planets, those shadows are long.
You got enough to worry about. You barely wanted this calendar app on your phone. You don't want to know about outer planets. Get out of here. But so the Venus enters Leo on the 6th of June. I mean, on the 5th of June, it enters immediately with an opposition to Pluto, because as we said, we've had that Pluto at 0 degrees in Aquarius. So I think also like the beginnings of those fixed signs are going to start with an opposition or a square to Pluto, which I think is like coming off of all of this fixedness. Having a Pluto square or an opposition does feel transformative, or does feel like, hey, something's moving. It still is, not necessarily one I would be like looking forward to, but also does feel like welcome change from all of the sameness that we've had. I mean, so much fixed. I'm sorry, everybody. But Venus stations retrograde, as I said, on the 22nd of July at 28 degrees of Leo, the same day the sun moves in. During this time, Pluto has now moved right after that. We've got Pluto moving back into Capricorn. Saturn's retrograding. It's staying in Pisces, but we are having a little bit of like, okay, let's check in. Venus retrograde feels like a check-in time.
We're also going to have the eclipses. So I do feel like it might feel a little bit less like checking in. So that's something to keep like in your back pocket as a strategy, because those eclipses can really like get you, I'm like swirling like a tornado, but it's like they can get you like riled up and up in the air a little bit. And so especially I feel like when they shift, there's like a big shift for what you value and stuff. And I think definitely having that idea of like, okay, what can I step back? What can I look at?
I like that too, because we do have our eclipses, first solar eclipse in Aries at 29 degrees Aries on the 19th of February. Get out of here. And that is also having that square to Pluto, because it's at 29 degrees. It'll move into 0 degrees Taurus, squaring that 0 degrees Pluto in Aquarius. Then we have the last lunar eclipse in Scorpio of that series. So there is both like starting and finishing. So I think you're right in that check-in. It's not quite we know what we're doing. It is like where like maybe it feels more like a gain your footing for a second, orient yourself to the present.
And I think July is when the nodes will technically shift into Aries and Libra. So I think that will be the kind of, it'll be in the middle of that retrograde. We'll have just had Pluto move again. And it kind of, that this summer kind of feels like there's a lot going on.
Well, it does.
July 17th.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, July 17th, that's when we'll have the North Node enter into Aries of Fish. And then right after that is that retrograde. It does feel like the eclipse feels like the first bumper of all the movement. Like, like we had all that spring energy and new movement. And then there's like, that's the first sort of like check-in bumper. And then Venus retrograde kind of feels like the next one before we have the next set of eclipses as the like, like all that movement. I mean, we've just felt what this Mars retrograde feels like. When was the last Venus retrograde? I know it was in Capricorn.
2020.
In 2020?
2020, yeah.
I think it's every 2 years ish, right? For Mars and for Venus. And there's something about it being in Leo and in during peak summer travel season that just feels, I just have to acknowledge it, because July 22nd through Labor Day, having this Venus Leo feels very like you get to Mount Rushmore and you're like, it's small and crowded. Like it feels like a little bit let down. Um, and not that that means you can't have, go ahead, have your summer vacay. I mean, we always, the astro gods always say, like, don't severely fuck with Venus things, right? Like money or your aesthetics or appearance, or trying out a new haircut is a little riskier when Venus, our planet of aesthetics, is moving backwards. Not even that it looks bad, it just might even look bad to you, right? Like you might not be able to see the glory of Venus. And in Leo, I think even when we had Chris Brennan on talking about the drama of Leo too, it does feel like it could just be really sassy, kind of like catty Leo time. So doesn't mean we don't have to cancel our summer vacays. It just might be managing expectations of them when we have Venus retrograde in the mix.
I actually think a haircut is a great example because, you can do a trim, you can cut it a lot, you can change hair, like your color, you can actually like shave your head. There are so many levels to it. And so I think if you are feeling like maybe you want to like get plastic surgery, maybe you do get a severe haircut and then you see how you feel during the Venus retrograde of like, how does changing my appearance to this extent feel with something that grows back? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think also if you're wondering about a big haircut, if you're a little bit nervous and you're the kind of person who hasn't cut their hair in years or hasn't, made a big change, maybe that means we try like a new makeup look. And that's like very, very different from what we normally see how we feel about ourselves when we see that, and then make the choice to, cut our hair or do the, do the
let's buy thing. The wig, the trial nose ring. Let's see, let's test it out and see. It does feel like, okay, is this what you really want? I was just noticing how, because of the Mars retrograde, it feels like Mars and Mercury are moving together a little bit more in concert than they normally do. They're never that far apart, but because we had that, it does feel like we could like think something and do something a little bit more connected. And I think that Venus retrograde is a little bit of a roadblock of going like, wait, I'm not sure if I like that, kind of going like, oh, I got the thing that I wanted and it didn't make me feel better. Maybe this wasn't actually what I wanted. Those kind of like motivations, values, how are those lining up? And how do we need to maybe sit in some discomfort or some like, I don't know, those things catching up with each other a little bit.
It could be a great time to like work on art, like doing those retrograde things, going more in, especially with Venus and Leo, those things you want to be seen for. But I think it's taking those more behind the scenes versus putting them out and having that gallery show, right? And showing everything right away. Maybe it's a little more at the progress, which I think Leo wants to be seen. And it is asking to maybe just wait a beat to be seen, or like take that time to make sure what you're showing is what you actually want to show to everyone.
I think there's something too about that summer period that is a little bit
it's like
about
peak vacation time.
Well, that's
like
that's what I mean, where it's like you might be raring to go and have this thing, but it is that like you're sending emails and it's out of like people need the break, or there's no money for that right now. Everybody saved up for this thing. We did the thing, like this is like sale time. This is, we are, whatever, not to make it as like banal as that, but thinking of just that thing of like, yeah, it's hard to feel like, you might not feel your Leoist, shiniest, sunniest self at this time. You might be like, this is kind of a dog days of summer feeling too, a relentless.
Saturn and Pisces, the art thing, I think that is like a huge, I mean, I think we'll definitely, we're going to see, I mean, if you are taking this Venus retrograde period to like do more art and stuff, we are going to see more rules and more, I mean, who knows if they'll be to benefit artists and the AI conversation has already sparked that, like, well, what does it mean for the artists that the AI is ripping off? And what does it mean for the authors that the AI is reading their books and regurgitating? And what does it mean? And does that mean we put in more restrictions in order to let artists create, their art and have a living, making something beautiful. I mean, that to me, it's so Venus retrograde. It's so Pisces. Like I think, or Saturn Pisces, and maybe Leo too. I think Leo's a little bit presentational, but theater. I mean, performance space, like music, how we pay Spotify streams, all that kind of stuff.
Leo also makes me think of rehearsal too, thinking of that, of the being the, you had this great idea, these bolts of inspiration, you came up with the thing that you're going to write, the painting you're going to make, the thing you're going to sew, whatever. And that Leo Venus retrograde feels like the part where you're like, why did I agree to do this? I'm still like, I'm not getting anywhere. That kind of, not like writer's block necessarily, but the part of it that feels kind of relentless. And it's just like the daily practice, sun fixed fire of it all. How do you maintain your motivation for something when you may not feel like doing it?
And just like how we've had with this Mars retrograde, we're going to have Venus and Leo for a long time too. So I think those themes are just going to be very present. It'll be from June 5th through October 8th of 2023. So a lot of Leo Venus time, which, I mean, Leo Venus sounds nice. Like that sounds like a very sultry, fun Venus. But also in that Venus retrograde, we are getting a Mercury retrograde on August 23rd. That's going to go till September 15th. So Venus will be out of retrograde, but still in the shadow. But right at the end too, we're getting hit with Mercury retrograde. So that's just a lot. There's just a lot in the mix that I would just look at those dates and do what you want with them. Oh, and we have that blue moon right after on August 30th. I think that's a noteworthy one in August too, having our second full moon of the month, making it a blue moon in Pisces.
I think those reminders of like for another day and a day, like one day at a time, give it a day. It's just you can afford to lose a day. Any of those kinds of things of like, I don't know. It does. I don't want to say second chances, but it is like hey, hold on for one more day. Very like Wilson Phillips vibes. Like I don't know. It's a Venus retrograde, but it's also a blue moon. That can be like, what if you can show up even though you don't feel your best? What happens, and what does that then open up for you to go, oh, what, like, wow, actually, maybe these values are good. Like, do you have values to stand on, or do you not? And if you do, what can't you do once you know that?
Totally.
I think, yeah, the last thing that I would say, we like round out this year, and I think we've made reference to this during our retrograde episode, but as you said, all of the Mercury retrogrades this year are in earth signs, and I think that also kind of is a continuation of this fixed story. I know that not all earth signs are fixed, but there is something to me very like tangible and real, and that these are kind of those like continuations and the like, I don't know, believe fixed signs of it, where it's like I don't know, maybe seeing some of the institutions being held accountable in some kind of real way, and then having, our fixed sign story in that Taurus Mercury retrograde continuing, but having that be one where we're actually able to go back, fix some things that need fixing, and then having that taking us into that Virgo Mercury retrograde where we might be able to do some, I don't know, some alchemy
mutable
changes. Yeah, do the mutable stuff that ends with that Capricorn Mercury retrograde at the end of the year, going like, let's see, did the changes that we did, like, where are we at? What are the stats at the end of the year? And I think that could pertain to, obviously in your personal life, very kind of earth sign things of like, what does your apartment look like right now? What is your physical health like? But also this can apply to, I think, climate change. This can apply to our food sources, our energy sources, our things like that. Like, have things been, obviously, again, not like completely fixed, new, different, but being able to see at the end of the year, like, did we measure up in some kind of way? Did we make any kind of Capricorn progress, or are we still where we were? And then what does that send us into for those fire Mercury retrogrades in 2024?
And the very first Mercury retrograde station is on the 1st, right, of 2024.
Yeah, Mercury will go retrograde on the new moon day, on December 12th. And then it will retrograde into Sag, so we'll get an Earth fire at the end of the year. But yeah, then Jan 1st, so we'll have another New Year's Eve Mercury retrograde styly. And we'll go over each like major thing obviously on their own episodes. But October, got to just pop back to October real quick with because we'll have the new moon solar eclipse in Libra on the 14th, and then on the 28th we'll have the full moon lunar eclipse, and then that's the end of the Taurus Scorpio eclipse series. So what were you doing back in spring 2022? What was happening? What's the tea? What's the goss? Might be some real things, coming to fruition then. So I think it's hard to, and I feel like we do this every time we talk about the eclipses. It's so much stuff that we might just not even be privy to, that's going on behind the scenes, or some things that are, I feel like eclipses are either very in your face or like it's so you didn't even get it. You had no idea that was happening behind the curtain. So have fun with that, I guess.
Well, there's the Jupiter going from Aries to Taurus, the kind of trading off in the opposite direction of the eclipses. And then I think this was on the astrology podcast that someone brought up that we're going from one Venus-Mars sign pair to another Venus-Mars sign pair, where we've come from this Mars retrograde, we have a Venus retrograde, and kind of all of the ways that we are investigating both our like our values and our motivations and how we take action around both of those things and how they line up and how they do and don't support each other or work for us. And those things of kind of having like, okay, we just had that Taurus eclipse is ending and we're having Jupiter in Taurus. So it is going to be like, hey, you get one more shot at this at the end, like last one, last call.
I also think that Venus and Mars represent such a binary gender thing in our society. Like those necklaces are like the sign, the glyph or whatever. And I think Pluto in Aquarius maybe could usher in some of the like even more of the non-binary stuff, and not just in gender but in general, not having such black and white perspectives on things that are really teachings. They are things we've been told, and gender in a lot of ways is like a performance. It's not necessarily I don't even know what the other term for it is, but it just, I think that Pluto being so, I don't know, Aquarius is definitely more, I feel like it's less binary, and Venus and Mars are, I think in a lot of ways represent like binary things, and us evaluating what those things are, like what you're saying, motivation and those kind of things, which we of course give men, quote unquote, in our society, while we tell women they're Venus and they're receptive and their love and their beauty and all of those things. And when we evaluate those things in our lives, we find that every one of us has both. And so it is kind of like, I don't know, I just feel like that would be a big conversation.
Destructing the binary within yourself, or creating your own, what's your actual binary, which isn't about gender. It's about, this, I can't think of a good example for what that is, but there is still like balance of
sometimes it depends on your mood. Sometimes it depends on what event you're going to, what kind of thing you are, who you want to be today, what somebody told you yesterday. I mean, there's so many reasons why those things change.
Did you guys see that? Did you guys see that Jennifer Lawrence clip? There was like an actors roundtable and she's with like every A-list awesome actor, women actors.
Oh, I've seen this. Oh, it's so good.
She's such a Gemini. Her delivery just is so funny. I think I like her more like when she's herself versus a lot of the roles she's done. But she's talking with them and about how women get this rap for being so emotional, right? And we hear this in politics, like, well, what are they going to push the nukes when they're on their periods? Which is like, no,
we do every fucking thing else.
People who menstruate go do everything on their periods.
Yeah.
You anyway, but she's talking about how men being emotional on set and how like it's always wrapped up in women. And she just casually is like, I mean, I've worked with Bryan Singer, and all the women just start laughing. When it's like, ooh, they've all talked about how much of a diva asshole this guy is. And just when someone name drops that right shit talk at the perfect time where it just makes everybody explode. Yeah. I'll link that clip too. Cause it just felt like she didn't even have to say, she just had to say his name and everyone knew exactly what she was talking about. And maybe that will be us just cackling in the Pisces Saturn of it all, being like, this is
Well,
also
I think it's funny
stupid and
that
made up.
it's that collective consciousness thing. And I think AI is going to bring that conversation forefront even more. AI is also going to bring forward, I think, less binary stuff because people will start having to use the right pronouns and stuff because it's a computer and not a person. And once you realize that you're able to do that for a computer and you won't do it for someone who you care about in your life, like that forces change. And so I think, I don't know, I do think there is a collective consciousness for sure, saying the name and everyone knowing it. That's so Piscean. It's we're all one thing together.
This also makes me think of the difference between like women are emotional versus Bryan Singer is a predator. There's a name versus a generalization about a non-existent binary or whatever. And I think that to me is the like Aries Libra, where it is also kind of like the Mars Venus of it, where it's like, who specifically are you talking about? Name the woman that you know who was difficult, because that's actually difficult. People are a problem for all of us. So please tell us about this
mystery
phantom woman who's so emotional that she's derailed all business.
She got her period. We all want to know who bled on the set of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, the streets ran red with blood and production ended for months at a time.
Ooh.
Like, what? Please give us this list, because there's lists of men all over fucking town.
I love first episode of the year. Of course, we're gonna talk about periods, but this also makes me think of the nepo baby discussion as well. I think just if you trace back where everything came from, is it just a coincidence that every actor who's the Manson family in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is the child of someone famous, including his muse, who he almost disabled, Uma Thurman's daughter? Like, no. And Meghan McCain, did you guys see what Meghan McCain? I'm just like, this, you can tell Mars is still in Gemini. I'm still like tweet gossipy right now. I'm like, did you see what Meghan McCain said? She actually had like, sometimes she like has a normal response, but she was like, acknowledge that your last name got you somewhere and move on. No one's canceling you. They're just pointing out something that is true.
Well,
and it was like, whoa. And of course it's paired with this picture of her with her, like when she was doing like extremely appropriative hair. And I'm always like, LOL, Meghan McCain is just so nepo baby.
Hey, she's got a last name too. We know where she came.
And she says it, my father, my dad, all the
my friend
time.
Brendan made like all of us as nepo babies variety or fake Photoshop ones. And of course, like he always uses me as a guinea pig when he sends them to our friend group, because he knows that I'm not precious about stuff like that. And I don't care what you write about me on the internet. I know you're my friend. I'm not going to flip out or whatever. And everyone in our group was like laughing because we were all trying to be like, no, actually, I actually do have connections. Like, I am a nepo baby. Like, I actually am. Like, no, but I don't know if you know this, but like, I know someone who is in this thing or whatever. It was like just a fun interaction. But it's like, when you really look at it, we all know like, I'm not like all of us, but the three of us all know someone. So like, how far are we breaking this thing down? I think acknowledge and move it on is a great way to.
And it's also, the thing is like, it's saying, this isn't for the nepo babies to feel bad. It's for people aspiring to do this thing to know that predominantly the people that are in this are people that know people. So what's actually more important is for you to make community connections, get to know people. Don't think that
hang
it's
out
just
with Lily Rose Depp.
Yes, yes, exactly. Just show up, make friends with the celebrities, kid.
Honestly,
not that would
work.
Doesn't hurt. It is that like instead of being like, how dare you accuse us of not getting here on our own merit? It's like, be like, yeah, this is, acknowledge your last name and move on. And also encourage people to like, I don't know, make friends, be part of the community that you want to be part of, engage in this way. I know that that's maybe a farther way to extrapolate out the nepo baby thing, but it is like to acknowledge that we don't know people and that our relationships don't get us places doesn't also help us move forward. Relationships always help us in anything, and we should be encouraged to invest in each other and our relationships and care and help and support and all of those things, instead of going like, nope, it's just toxic individual, we got here all on our own, don't you dare bring up my parents or anything else that's helped me.
Well, it's the same with when Lily Rose Depp was like, no, like you wouldn't say this about doctors. And then all these medical students are like, no, like if your
Yeah, you
dad
would.
donated the building, you do
People
get
say it
into
all the
this, like,
time. Yeah.
100%.
That's what a
nepotism
legacy is in universities. Like,
Yeah. Nepotism exists in everything, and in Hollywood it's very rampant. But also the thing that was funny about it too, and I think that's the slippery Piscesness that we're about to get into, is like, okay, but we also have to acknowledge when someone's just a rich kid, because rich kid is different than nepo baby. And someone's like, I think they've had like Meghan Markle, and I've also just watched the Meghan and Harry doc. They're like, her dad was a grip. And it's like, well, okay, like that's pretty blue collar of a job.
Yeah,
I know where she went to high school.
Oh, she went to Immaculate Heart. Like she went to the
so
Louis
she was rich.
She lives in LA, but there's also, and that's what I was talking about with a friend, where it's like you still have insight of the industry. You live closer to it than someone coming from the middle of nowhere. But you know, your dad's not Ron Howard. Your dad is like doing very union type work. So it was funny to see who made it in and like what was considered nepo, when some things were just so nepo. And like, yeah, it's now if you watch things, you're like, everyone is a child of someone famous, and some of them are talented.
We're all a child of someone.
Whoa, damn! I wish. Are you guys nepo babies? You have to tell me.
Yeah, you have to tell me. You have to admit.
You have to tell me.
Maybe it's legal. It's illegal.
You know, it's
entrapment.
Damn, that's gonna be my new like pickup line. So, you nepo baby, or what's up? What's your parent of a Wikipedia page? Yes or no? And how good is it? And how deep does it go? But I think very Pisces, knowing the source, where did this come from? I think there's actually genuine more interest. And will we care? I don't know.
I think it's less about, Pisces is like where it came from, but I think it's more about like, do we want this to continue?
Yeah.
What do we want to keep going? Because Pisces is the end, but it's also the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'm just looking through the calendar real quick. I mean, I know we glossed over some months, but we'll talk about it as we have a whole year ahead.
There's
stuff. Enough. I mean, there's moons, there's ingresses, and those are all things that you can buy on our What's Your Sign GCal. If we missed telling you when the shadow period is, or
oh my god, no, we're not
when things are ingressing, you can buy our calendar.
No, these were the main big things, and I think it's what I am excited for, whether it's good, bad, happy, sad, is wow, it's going to feel very like a new year, at least astral weather wise. And one date I did want to note, because I feel like just everybody has mentioned this date, and I'll give you this, but April 11th is a sun in Aries conjunct Jupiter in Aries, and everyone's raving about it being such an auspicious date and lucky date. So I just felt like I should throw that in the mix for April, because it is right before the eclipses too. So just a fun...
Jupiter Sun conjunction is one that happens only once a year, but it happens every year, and astrologers love it. So
they love the luck, honey.
It is
and then
a day. I think also a reminder of this, of like, also these are things to bookmark, like look ahead as big potentials, but also we're not going to know what these are until we get closer. Let this not be a thing that is I don't know, we don't want to look so far ahead that we aren't living life. We don't need to know what's happening every day, because you're not going to know.
Still take summer vacay during Venus retrograde if you had like your big Italy trip plan. Go for it. Just know the weather.
Yep.
And I think what you said too, of like when we have retrogrades or have slowdowns, like plan an extra day, like have space to have a hangover day or a do nothing day or more, like it doesn't want to be as tight and regimented. So I think just knowing what these planets and these signs are into or what they're not into, just some info.
That is the Jupiter Sun to me is like, hey, it's just a good day. It doesn't mean it doesn't necessarily, maybe it changes your life. Sometimes a day can do that, but it might just be a good day. And that's nice. We don't always have them.
One of those things where maybe if you have to pick a day for your job interview or your first date or your, that you pick that day, it's that week, you're doing it.
And if you had a bad day on that day, God hates you. So
and we do too. And also, sorry,
7 years bad luck. Saturn's coming.
Okay, which sign is to end, who do we think? What sign is like? Whose year is it? Just pure guesstimation from these stats. Who's gonna
I'm just
have
gonna
the
give
ace
my
year?
sign.
Yeah, I am gonna say
Taurus?
Taurus, honestly.
I think Taurus. Well, with Jupiter, that's nice.
And we're just finishing off the eclipse stuff, and
Okay.
also, I mean, it
I
could
think-
be Pisces too. We're having I feel
Saturn
like,
though, that's
but
I'm scared for them.
Aquariuses did really well. Like, it doesn't mean that they're not
Oh, they're
gonna
twisted.
have hardship, but
No.
sometimes you get handed a responsibility, and when you can really nail it,
Oh, Pisces might step up to the plate. That's
I
kind of
think
cute.
Pisces is not going to feel like it's their year, but when they look back at the end, they are going to go like, "Whoa, I can't believe I did that," or I really learned about myself.
It might
I've been
be a
having
big year.
conversations. Yeah, I've been having
Mhm.
several conversations with Pisces and being like, "Hey, yeah, Saturn is going to transit. I don't maybe not your sun yet, but it is like on its way for you, and that's like not work, but that also is foundational and forming of an identity that is an exciting place to be in." So
and we'll be talking
Okay.
about things you feel strongly about, probably. So
Yeah.
yes, I think
You
that
could be an
having
expert.
yourself, especially for Pisces, I think that you are. We talked about this on our Chris Brennan episode, where it is always like, oh, Pisces, what, who, what, how could we ever describe them? But
Mhm.
having Saturn there, I think, is going to be a rare opportunity to hear yourself, your experiences, these things kind of verbalized for you in a way that they aren't always, which again is not necessarily easy or enjoyable, because that can be hard. It can be some harsh realities, but also exciting.
Oh wow.
And it's also it's everybody's year, always.
the year
Prove us wrong,
the
baby.
years Pisces sets boundaries and shows up on time? We'll see.
Hey,
We'll see.
I'm into it.
That'd be hot.
We can hope.
Yeah, Pisces would be unstoppable if well we'll find out, but should feel at least fresh after a bit of the same old.
Before we know it, we're gonna be
gonna
reflecting
be-
back on
I
all
know.
of this
I
and
was just
going
thinking
seeing
that.
what we did, and that's exciting. It's something that I like about doing these year aheads whenever we do it. It is like, oh wow, I can't believe we're doing another year ahead,
I know.
and thinking about
Can't believe
year-
Saturn's gonna be in Pisces. That is weird. That like
Yeah.
is movie. That is bookmarking time. And congrats to all the Saturn Aquarius people for surviving your
You
Saturn
did it.
return. And Pisces Saturn people, here
Hit
you
us
go.
up for them readings.
Ish, come
Mhm.
through. And well, to another year of looking at the stars. Hey gals.
Yeah. Thank
Let's
you
do
guys
it.
so much for listening and for coming with us on this journey. If you're new, welcome. But if you've been with us, if this is not your first year ahead, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
We're excited to see what 2023 brings for all of us, and Happy New Year.
Woo.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.